I'm smiling because I was just about to hit the release button on a video I've done on Rui Pedro Silva, the assistant coach that is about to be named as Nuno'S assistant coach for the upcoming season. But just before I did, I always do this. I always do this. I checked the latest news, and lo and behold, there's a news story that came out literally half an hour ago. I'm recording this again for the second time at 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. And literally half an hour or so ago, the news came out that West Ham have appointed Nils Koppen as the Director of Player Recruitment. I'm going to call him that because I don't know the exact title he's going to get, but let's just say for argument's sake, he's going to be that. So that's the breaking news. And I mean, the rest of this video is going to be all about Rui Pedro Silva. But before I do that, it's interesting. We've been waiting for quite a bit of news to come out of West Ham. And because there are no more leaks, things take time. And we as a West Ham fan base have got to become accustomed to having to wait for the news to break in a proper manner rather than all the leaks that are coming out. So let's talk initially about Nils Coppen. Now, I've done a video about him, so I'm not going to go into his history or anything like that. But I'm going to read to you the first interview that he's given about his new appointment. So he has said, I am pleased to have this fantastic opportunity and very much looking forward to joining such a big club and being part of something new. The first focus will obviously be the transfer window and identifying the correct players to move us forward next season. We also want to keep the core squad intact. Really important that. So he's saying what we've been hearing, especially from Katinsky. He doesn't want to get rid of key players. He wants to keep the core squad intact. Now, what you might call core squad and what I will and what Nils Coppen might be very different things. But anyway, it's good to hear that. He went on to say, West Ham United had a very good run at the end of the Premier League season last season. So if we can keep that together and not make too many changes, we can start off with a good base. That is so important. Not make too many. It's not going to be a wholesale, let go of a whole load of players. We know certain players will go. I've said this before. Players who have been out on loan, for example, Fulkrug, Ward-Prowse, players like that are not likely to feature in this squad next season. Possibly Alvarez might, but, a lot of the core squad that's currently there, we want to keep. So for many players coming in, they have to be fully on board with what we want to achieve and feel what the expectations are for this big club. It's a huge honor to represent West Ham United. So that's proof that Nils Koppen has arrived. Now, interim CEO coach Karim Virani added, we're delighted to welcome Nils to West Ham United. He went on to say, the board was impressed by his experience and proven track record in successful player recruitment. The appointment of Nils is a key building block in our new way of working as we look to create and develop a player recruitment model. So there you go. So Nils Koppen is West Ham United's new Director of Player Recruitment. The name might change, but you know what he's going to do. He's going to recruit players. So there you go. So anyway, let me crack on now that news is out of the way. The next thing we've got to focus on is the next man that's going to likely be along by his side. So he's going to have Nils Koppen helping to create the squad that Nuno wants. But what about the training? Now, when Nuno first arrived at West Ham, everyone immediately focused on why he wasn't able to bring any of his backroom staff with him. And at the time, we were told they were still in jobs, they wouldn't be available. But I guess, reading between the lines, the truer reason is that Sullivan didn't want to pay the compensation to prize them away from their respective clubs, which kind of may have eventually cost us a place in the Premier League by not having the proper coaching background, proper coaching set up at the club. Now, if I have to loosely defend Sullivan in any way, you could go back to Graham Potter. He brought in all his coaching staff. And when Potter was sacked, we had to sack and compensate all his coaching staff too. So I kind of understand it. Do I agree with it? not bringing Nuno's coaching staff in? Probably not. But I kind of get why you didn't want to pay even more compensation to bring anyone in. So, Nuno didn't have tried and trusted staff with him. There's nothing against the academy coaches who were helping Nuno. I think they did a grand job, but it always felt a bit cheap and a bit makeshift, didn't it? And cheap and makeshift is not something that you have when you're fighting relegation. It's nowhere near enough what we needed for the coaching staff. But that's why Friday's news about Silva coming in is significant. So we've not only got Nils Koppen in, who's going to be helping to do the recruitment, we're now going to get Rui Pedro Silva as Nuno's assistant head coach. So that's really, really significant. Now, if you're new to the channel or if you've watched the West Ham Voice before and yet to become a subscriber, QR code has appeared in the top corner there. Click on that, become a subscriber of the channel. Costs nothing to subscribe. If you enjoy the content, why not become a subscriber? Anyway, now let's think about who Silva is. Because, he's about to leave Wolves. He's set to become Nuno's right-hand man in the coaching setup. And this is someone who spent almost 2 decades learning his skill under some of Portuguese football's best coaches. And he helped Nuno to build one of the greatest periods in Wolverhampton Wanderers history. And he's become one of Nuno's most trusted footballing minds. So who is he? An elite assistant coach like him often runs a huge part of the training process with the players, analyzing opposition, developing tactical plans, working individually with players, challenging the manager's ideas. And that's exactly the reputation that Silva has built. Now, interestingly, Silva wasn't a footballer himself before becoming a coach. He took a different route, primarily through scouting, and then moving on to coaching, and then working under one of Portugal's most respected managers, Jesualdo Ferreira. Now, Ferreira won 3 consecutive Portuguese league titles with Porto, and in his time has developed countless coaches during his career. Silva started as one of his analysts and then a scout before becoming his assistant coach. And that foundation is important. So instead of relying on a playing career that he didn't have, Silva built his career through footballing and intelligence, studying, analysing, learning, understanding tactics. And that's how often the best modern coaches emerge. His journey then became quite impressive. He followed Ferreira to Spanish club Malaga and then Greek club Panathinaikos before eventually joining Nuno in his coaching team in 2012. And that partnership has lasted for well over a decade. And that's quite significant because managers don't keep the same assistant coaches for 12, 13, 14 years unless they completely trust them. And Nuno clearly completely trusts Silva and probably would have liked him to be at West Ham with him last season. Now, many people forget where Nuno really made his managerial reputation. It wasn't at Wolves, it was at Rio Ave, a relatively small Portuguese club with Silva alongside him. Rio Ave reached both the Portuguese Cup final and the League Cup final in the same season. Now, for a club of Rio Ave's size, that was quite extraordinary. It showed that they could both organise teams who are far stronger than themselves. That theme has followed Nuno and Silva throughout their careers. Their success earned them a job at Valencia, one of Spain's biggest clubs. Huge pressure there, different expectations, different culture, different league altogether. And now Silva found himself coaching against teams like Barcelona and Real Madrid, against some of the greatest, best players in the world. And that's valuable experience. And now coming back to prepare West Ham to get back into the Premier League, that's going to be quite vital. After Spain came Porto, again, massive expectation, one of Portugal's biggest clubs. Now, trophies didn't come their way, they proved elusive, but Silva continued building experience inside one of Europe's biggest footballing institutions. And soon the opportunity in England came, of course, at Wolverhampton Wanderers. And this is where West Ham supporters really want to pay attention, because Nuno and Silva arrived at Wolves in 2017. What happened kind of transformed the club. Championship winners at first time of asking, promotion into the Premier League, seventh place in the Premier League twice in a row, European qualification, Europa League quarter-finalists, FA Cup semi-finalists. Wolves became one of the Premier League's most difficult teams to play against. They were built on really, really good organisation. Defensively really good, physically outstanding, tactically disciplined. And that's exactly what many West Ham supporters want to see next season, especially if Silva does join Nuno, which is looking more and more likely. In 2021, something different happened. Nuno went to Spurs, Silva didn't follow. Silva decided at the time that he wanted to become a manager in his own right. And, his decision to go it alone kind of said he's not someone who's just going to be following Nuno everywhere. So he wanted an opportunity to see what management was like. He wanted the responsibility, the pressure to make his own decisions. He became manager at Famalicão in Portugal's top division. Now, it's important to spell out that this spell wasn't really that successful. He inherited a difficult situation, initially improved some performances, but results tailed off, and he left the club less than a year after taking over by mutual agreement. Now, some people are going to point to that and see it as a negative, a bit of a failure. But for me, it depends on how you see it, because an outstanding assistant doesn't always become an outstanding manager. Some examples of yesteryear, going back some time, Carlos Queiroz was arguably Sir Alex Ferguson's greatest assistant, but he didn't necessarily become a great manager soon after. If you want to go further back, Peter Taylor, likewise with Brian Clough. Now, these partnerships would worked because everyone understood their roles. Silva returning as an assistant isn't a backward step for him. It's probably where his greatest strength lies. After leaving Famalicão, Silva reunited with Nuno at Nottingham Forest. And now, if reports are correct, going to be at West Ham United as well. And that tells you something, because when Nuno gets the chance to choose his coaching staff, Silva is one of the very first names he wants. That level of trust cannot be underestimated. So what will he bring? What will Silva bring to the setup? 5 things which I've kind of covered already. Organisation. Every successful Nuno side has been incredibly organised. And, they're going to be learning how to manage the game without the ball. Now, I think in the Championship, we're going to see more of the ball than we would have done if we stayed in the Premier League. But Silva will be spending hours coaching the team on how to manage with the ball and how to manage without it. Secondly, consistency. Players hear the same messages every day. And if that's coming from the manager and the assistant who are completely aligned, that means no mixed messages. That means everybody knows their role within the club. Thirdly, player development. If you look at the improvements made with some of the players at Wolverhampton Wanderers, you'll see how tactically astute some of them became, more disciplined, better decision makers. And that's what we want at West Ham as well. Fourthly, preparation. With Silva's background in scouting and analysis, it means opposition preparation will be one of the strongest areas that he'll be involved in. And finally, stability. The coaching team has worked together for years. They don't need 3 or 6 months to become acclimatized, accustomed to each other. They know exactly how their training sessions are going to run from day one. And that's invaluable with the short pre-season that we're going to have at West Ham. Now, look, we've had plenty of talented squads over the years, but what we've lacked at times is consistency. One week excellent, the next week dreadful. One of Nuno's biggest strengths throughout his career has been to create structure. Silva has been central to that process. You don't spend over a decade alongside a manager without influencing the football itself. So it's going to be collaborative. Ideas are going to bounce off each other. Nuno and Silva are going to be aligned, and the training sessions will be planned together. So my final thought, is Rui Pedro Silva going to make headlines at West Ham? Probably not. But he could quietly become one of the most important appointments alongside Nils Koppen that West Ham United make this summer. And if Nuno believes Rui Pedro Silva is the man he needs alongside him after all these years, that's a recommendation that carries enormous weight. West Ham aren't just bringing in another assistant, they're bringing in one of the architects of Nuno's most successful teams. And if they can recreate even a fraction of what they achieved at Wolverhampton Wanderers, then this could prove to be one of the smartest appointments of the entire summer. So there you go, 2 stories in one. Nils Koppen is being confirmed as West Ham United's, whatever you want to call him, player recruitment head, director of player recruitment, whatever it's going to be. And as I've said earlier in the show, right at the start, he talked about, I'm really pleased to be at this club, very much looking forward to joining such a big club, being part of something new. The first focus is the transfer window, of course, identifying the right players to move us forward. We want to keep a core squad intact. He talked about how we had a very good run at the end of the last Premier League season. And if we can keep the squad together and not make too many changes, we can start off with a good base. So he said, for all new players coming in, they have to be on board with what we want to achieve and feel what the expectations are for this club, for this big club. He said it's a huge honour to represent West Ham United. Things are moving on. Finally, we're seeing developments. First with Nils Coppen, and now with the assistant head coach of Rui Pedro Silva. Things are looking up, people. Things are finally looking up. If you're new to the channel, or if you're yet to subscribe, click on that QR code, become a subscriber of the channel, hit the like button, hit the bell notification to let you know when I'm next on, hit the hype button, which allows this video to be promoted to other viewers on YouTube. Have a great rest of the weekend, and I'll see you all pretty soon.